Hello, everyone. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to another episode of the Back of the Pack podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Walker. Thank you so much for tuning in. First things first, we have a update, shall we say, on the London Marathon. If you guys listened last week, you know that the London Marathon ballot was open. It was only open for about a week, 7 days at the most. It closed, and so numbers are starting to trickle out. Now, I don't have this verified. I've only seen it posted in maybe one or two places, and neither of those places are from the official London Marathon. But let's just say if you have an in with a charity bib, you might want to go ahead and start pursuing that now because our chances of making it through the lottery are itty bitty bitty bitty. Apparently, they received 840,000 ballots while the ballot box was open. 840,000 people have registered for the London Marathon. Again, if that number is to be believed, it has not been officially confirmed yet by the race. But whoa, that's a big race. That's a lot of people who want to run that race. And so I don't like our chances getting in through the lottery system. So if you can get in with a charity, you might want to start filling out that paperwork now and tell everyone your story. And yeah, agree to raise those funds because if you're running London, you are probably running it through a charity and not through the ballot. So that's the big news of today. And as I just bump into my microphone, that's super great. But man, that number was just kind of staggering. And that just came out today, the day that we were recording this podcast. So still processing that news. Whew. Anyway, all right. So this weekend, this was the Top City Half Marathon weekend in Topeka, Kansas, the good old state capital of my beloved state of Kansas. We went down there for the half marathon Saturday morning. And, you know, everything we've been telling you on this podcast about that race still holds true. It is a very well done race. We all enjoy that race a lot. So, Saturday morning, I did not go. Okay, well, let me rewind a little bit. I did not go to either of the packet pickups because I didn't want to drive all the way to Topeka, Kansas, about a 45-minute drive for me, just to get my packet and come back. So, thankfully, because they understand people are traveling, they do have race morning packet pickup, which is great. So, race morning, left the house early, got down to Topeka. If you listened last year, this is the race where the start is at a big downtown kind of plaza. Evergy Plaza is what they call it. And so there's tons of space. They were able to set up a tent. They were able to set up a table. There are vendors. There's a lot of room. People can just kind of meander around and talk and stretch. And you just have this very centralized location for all the runners to get ready to run the race. I think it's great. I really like the plaza. They even have a big screen that they turned on. It showed a lot of the the people who sponsored the race. They even put up a little something for the Back of the Pack podcast. So huge thank you to Top City for that one. But it's really a nice area to just be able to gather yourself and gather with others before the race. Now, last year, it was so cold, everyone was gathered around the outdoor gas fire pit that I had going on. And not the case this year. So, one of the big stories of this year's race was the weather. It was not cold like last year, it was not dry like last year. I got out of my car, it was already 70 degrees. And I think somebody said that the humidity was at 88%. So, it was warmly and it was humid. It was really, really humid. So that was one of the biggest stories of the race. We get there, get my packet, we're shooting the breeze, we're talking to people. Something about this Evergy Plaza where we could all gather. I think everyone was so busy gathering, we kind of lost track that we had to run a race that morning. Did anyone else kind of get that way? Like they're starting to call it, hey, the race is going to start in 5 minutes. Nobody is at the starting line, which is just on the street right next to the plaza. Everyone's in the plaza talking, shooting the breeze, taking pictures, doing all that fun stuff. I don't know about everyone else, but as for me, the start of the race snuck up on me. I wasn't ready. And that becomes a problem later, and we'll get to that. That I was not ready. Anyway, the race starts. We have the national anthem. The race starts. The race starts uneventfully. Nothing else happened at the start of that race. Nothing that we're going to talk about right now. Mark, the race director, is just cringing, wondering if I'm going to cover what happened at the start of the race. I'm not. Listen, you guys know that one of my biggest things is races that don't start on time drive me nuts. This race started like 1 or 2 minutes late because there was a little audio issue with the national anthem. No problem. That is not the fault of the race organization. But people started looking at me in the starting crowd like, "Ooh, is Kyle going to blow this race up on the next episode?" No, I am not. Now it's just a funny thing that we're going to have like forever. And the race started 1 to 2 minutes late. Clutch my pearls. So no, but the fact that people are aware that that drives me nuts makes me laugh. So anyway, no, we got through the national anthem. The race begins, and boom, we are off like a shot. And it's the exact same course as last year, at least as far as I could tell. So we start with this wonderful downhill. I love the downhill at the start of the race. Problem is, you have to finish that race going up that hill. But anyway, I love the downhill to start this race. A good way to kind of get yourself warmed up. Because again, we were all chatting at the start line. I personally had no warm up whatsoever. And my biggest problem was I didn't even stretch. Now there's an issue. So we get the downhill, zoom, we're going, go up in a little hill, hang a left. You run right to the state capitol. Like, seriously, you run right up to it. You could touch it with your left hand on the way out if you wanted to. You go onto the grounds of the state capitol and you go through their little, I'm assuming it's a little carport where the governor probably gets out of cars and walks into the capitol when being escorted around. That's my guess. And you go underneath that and then out the other side of the capitol and off you go. The first mile to mile and a half is mostly in downtown Topeka. So nice downtown environment as you're running along. You kind of leave the downtown area, go through a little bit of an industrial area, if you want to call it that. I think it's kind of an industrial area. And then you get on a trail, not a trail, sorry, paved bike path, paved walking path, whatever you want to call it, through a park. You were on that for the next, what were you on that for? 3 miles? Maybe 3 miles-ish, you're on that. And then you exit off of that path and you go back into some neighborhoods. So the neighborhoods is where you kind of do this loop around, and you're gonna come back with about those 3 or 4 miles left in the race. So you're doing a lot of neighborhoods around the midpoint of the race. You know, you get to the halfway point, you get past halfway, you get some nice downhills back there. You get to go by some parks, you get to go by some nice houses, you get to go through a very nice area, and then you finally circle your way around and you start coming back up and you re-enter that path with maybe 4 miles left, somewhere around there. I didn't exactly take mental pictures of the mile markers, but anyway, it's an out and back, but with kind of a loop. It's not just a straight go down, turn around, come back. It's an out and back with a nice big loop. We've talked about it before when Mark, the race director, was on the show. And so it's nice. You get back on the path. And when you're back on the path, you know exactly where you're at. You know exactly how much you have left. And away you go. You finish by exiting the path where you entered, going back up through the industrial area, up to the Capitol, around the Capitol, then up the last hill to the finish line. So the race, we knew exactly what we're going to get. I still maintain this is a pretty, I mean, no course is easy. It's still, you know, a half marathon. But of the courses around here, there are certainly more difficult ones. It is not the most difficult course that you will do. It's nice when you're on the paved path because, again, you don't have to worry about traffic. Not that you really had to worry about traffic. Kudos to the Topeka Police Department. They had every place blocked off that needed to be blocked off. There was never a point where I felt like traffic was out of hand or an issue because the Topeka Police Department, they were on it. They were all there in force, keeping the runners safe. So, yeah, that's one of the most important things when doing a race is that you keep your runners safe. No problem there. That box was checked for the Top City Half Marathon. And so when you finish the race, you finish going up the hill, you're done. Now, I'm trying to think if there's anything else positive I want to say about this race. You guys know I like this race. I will absolutely be back next year. Next year, I will be back to this race for redemption because I did not run a good race. I ran a very bad race. I had issues. You know, it's never if the injury bug jumps up and gets you, it's when. It is when the injury bug jumps up to get you. And it jumped up and sprung out of the woods and brutally assaulted me Saturday morning at Top City. So here's what I think is going on with me. Not that you care, but I have the microphone, so I'm going to tell you anyway. When I started the race, instantly my right foot didn't feel right. Something seemed wrong. Now, a lot of this had to do with my socks. Yes, socks. We always worry about running shoes and the importance of running shoes. We always worry about what tops we wear because we want to avoid, you know, chafed nipples. We worry about our running shorts. We don't want them to ride up into the netherworlds of our bodies while we're running and, you know, look ridiculous or become uncomfortable or chafe in other areas. We worry about all these things. You don't oftentimes hear about people talking about their socks. The story of my top city were the socks. So I grabbed a pair of socks the night before the race. I had worn them for a half marathon once before. I wore them in February in Vegas. Now, I didn't run a particularly great race in Vegas and I had a lot of foot pain. I attributed that to the shoes. So after that race, I got different shoes, didn't have any problems. Did the Little Rock Marathon in different shoes, did Rocket Parkway in these shoes. These shoes were not new. I got these shoes after Vegas and I blamed old shoes for the Vegas issue, but I never looked at those socks. So I grabbed the socks that I wore in Vegas and I put them on for Top City. They were a problem. They were a problem. So again, instant pain by the time we got to mile marker 1. By the time we got to the 5K point, I physically stopped, sat down on a big rock in the park to readjust my shoes and socks. I've never had to do this before. This was completely new to me. Thought I had fixed the problem, except I laced up my right foot. I laced up the shoes too tight after that. So on we go. I have to stop again and I have to readjust. And I'm trying tighter shoes. I'm trying looser shoes. I'm trying to readjust the socks. I am having such pain in my right foot. This was the closest I had ever come to not finishing a race. I just couldn't stand it. It was this horrible, horrible pain in my right foot. And so I'm every now and again, I'm stopping. I'm fixing my feet. I'm fixing the socks. I'm fixing the shoes. I am trying to figure out what the hell is wrong. We get to about mile marker. Well, it's not a mile marker, but about 5.5 miles into this race. I finally said, earmuffs kids, I said, screw this. I took off my right shoe. I took off that sock and I dumped it in a trash can. I took that damn sock off and I put it in a trash can. So if there's a homeowner in Topeka and you live along the course and you open up your trash lid and see a pair of running socks in there, that was me. Just leave them. You don't want them. Trust me. So then I put my shoe back on and a lot of the pain goes away. All right. What I think had happened was those socks were too tight. They were squeezing my foot way too much. Now, I like a little compression. And I've got the really flat runner's feet from all these years of running. Like the widening of my feet is noticeable from when I started to where I am now. These socks were not allowing for the right kind of expansion as I ran. And so they were causing massive amounts of pain. Now, the issue with that is this was at 5.5 miles into the race. Okay, well, what? I have about 7.5 miles that I have to do with no sock on my foot. So I am running more than a 10K with just a pair of shoes on a barefoot. While the particular pain had stopped that was being caused by the socks, now I've got whole other issues coming and affecting my race. So it was horrible for me. I finished the race and people saw me. I finished the race and I immediately took my shoes off. So at this point, I had taken off both my pairs of socks. They were in trash cans along the course. I took my shoes off when I finished and I was walking around the plaza area just barefoot. And yeah, that's not the greatest feeling in the world. I'm not a big barefoot walk around the world person. I try and wear shoes as much as I can, unless I'm just strolling around my home. But my feet hurt so bad that I had to take them off. I damn near threw the shoes away. I was so mad. I was so angry at that race because even after I took the socks off and ditched the socks, again, still running with just bare feet inside of running shoes. So my feet were all slipping around in there. It felt gross. Now things are hitting wrong. They're not my feet aren't fitting in my shoes correctly, and everything just went to crap. And so I would run and run and run and run. And trust me, I had plenty of energy because I feel like I hadn't even started that race yet. And I'll do it until the pain in my feet just got unbearable. Then I had to bring it back down to a walk. And so I'd walk. And then eventually the pain and numbness and all the tingles and everything horrible going on my foot, it would go away. So then I'm running again. Woo, here we go. Until the pain was so much that I couldn't do it anymore. And then I'd walk. It was the worst. How I was able to pull a sub 3-hour half marathon, I don't know. I really was expecting to come in at 3:20 because I felt like I had to walk. Like every few steps, I was back down to a walk because of the pain in my feet. And then, of course, blisters are starting to form because I don't have any freaking socks on. So it was, for me, an absolute nightmare of a race. Now, I do think that I have mildly, minorly to mildly re-injured some plantar fasciitis issues that I had years and years and years ago. This comes from overuse, and this comes from not stretching before the race. If you go back to before, we were all so comfortable at the plaza that we were just there shooting a breeze. I never stretched. I never even put my toe on a curb and just stretched my calf muscle out, which is something I do before every race. Because, and again, I'm no doctor here, not pretending to be a doctor, but I have some experience with this. I make the mistake so you don't have to. I do know that tightness in calf can directly affect plantar fasciitis. If you keep your calf well stretched and you stretch it before every race, stretch it after a race, stretch it on days you're not running, it does help with plantar fasciitis issues. Okay, I can speak from personal experience about this. From an entire summer, I lost to plantar fasciitis. So again, not a doctor. A doctor might, gasp when they hear this. What does this idiot know? Clearly has never been to a day of medical school, and you are correct. But my personal experience tells me stretched calves equals better plantar fasciitis. Okay, better muscles in the plantar fascia, shall we say. So that is just something to keep in mind. And then the other thing to keep in mind, always take the time before a race to get your stretches in. Yep, you can be talking to the people and you can be having the fun and you can be taking the selfies and you can be mildly giving the race director grief for 2 minutes of starting late. But whatever you do, while you give that grief, you would best be stretching out your legs, stretching out your hips, your calves, your quads, your feet, your whatever. If it's something you know is going to affect you, you better be stretching it before that race starts. Don't get so caught up in moments that you just let it go by the wayside. It's just too important. So as you can see, because things might look a little different on the screen, I'm sitting right now as opposed to the normal standing I do to record this podcast because I'm staying off this foot. My right foot definitely still hurts. I thought it was going to be worse than it is. I will say right now that I'm going to baby it here for a little bit, but I don't expect it to knock me out of Saturday's race. Saturday, we're going to be in Lincoln, Nebraska for the Lincoln Half Marathon, which is the first race in the Capital City Challenge. So I'll be driving up there Saturday, running the race Sunday morning, driving back home. Easy peasy. No worries there. But again, take away all my issues with the Top City Half Marathon. Again, my issues personally. I know there were people who PR'd that race, and that is a PRable race. So to the people who I know, Will and Chris, you guys both nailed some PRs, and I think some other folks did too, just from what I saw in the social media world. But great job out of anyone who hit a PR on Saturday. It is a race where you can definitely hit PRs. If you're not an idiot like me, suffering feet problems the whole time through. Something else to consider is we got to be really aware of the humidity because the humidity is definitely starting to ramp up here in the Midwest. And it was definitely a different ball game for me out at Top City. Now, take the foot issues aside. I mean, I was already dripping sweat. Like my shirt was soaked all the way down to my shorts and the droplets of water rolling off my shorts by the 5K mark. It wasn't the heat, it was the humidity that absolutely got a bunch of us. And I know a lot of people were kind of struggling with it just because, again, we're not used to it. It hasn't really hit yet in this area. It's hitting now because I'm looking outside my window right now. And as I record this, it's very humid because we've had a lot of rain in the area. Now the sun is out, so it's a little muggy. It's a little muggy, but tis the season, my friends. This is what it's going to be. So make sure that you give yourself a little grace, not grief, grace when you go out for your runs. Just remember, we're all getting reacclimated to the humidity. Okay, so this is not a 45-degree dry weather run anymore. These are going to be warmer, more humid days. So hydration has to be a bigger priority these days than it has been previously. And you got to be able to dress appropriately for the weather. A lot of times we still kind of overdo it. They go, oh, it might be a little chilly when we start the run, so I better wear the long sleeve dry tech, blah, 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 blah. Okay, because I saw this at Top City. A lot of people who, to me, appeared overdressed and they're shedding layers, as they get going. It's like, no, it's coming, man. The heat and the humidity, they're starting to creep up there. So that's where we are on that. But Top City put on a hell of an event. They always do. It's a great time. They bring beer for after the fact. There were barbecue sandwiches after the fact. And again, that whole plaza area is just a great way to meet after the race, to take your pictures, to rest, recover before you make that drive home, wherever it be, if you're in Topeka or if you live in Kansas City like we do, and a lot of people had to head on up the highway. So something I wanted to also touch on, again, I want to go back to the sock situation because honestly, it is something we don't ever give enough thought about. We've never talked about socks on an episode before. And I know it sounds silly to talk about it now, but this is kind of where we're at. It's socks, man. Like, yeah, it's socks that we have to talk about it. Get it? Get it? It's socks that we have to talk about it. Oh my goodness, I cracked myself up. But let's go ahead. And I just found a little snippet of an article, and it's just a little basic information because we don't think about socks. So let's dive into that. So I found this article. It's from Up and Running. It's just an online running site, and it says why running socks are so important. Again, they are, and I've learned this lesson now. We spend a lot of time deliberating, discussing, researching, trying on, and deciding which running shoes to buy. But do we give enough thought to choosing the right socks? Ding, ding, ding. Make the most of your new running shoes and wear new running socks. Running socks are designed specifically for runners to give maximum support to vulnerable areas, to prevent sore feet and blisters, and with enhanced breathability for comfort, running socks also provide additional grip inside your shoe, which stabilizes your feet, and the reduction in movement helps to prevent blisters. So this was one of the biggest things I noticed running with no socks on. My feet were sliding all around. They're just sliding all around inside that shoe. Like almost felt like I was running on mud at times because I thought my foot was going to slip out from underneath me. Well, no, that's just it sliding around within my running shoe. Really weird feeling, not one I recommend. Let's see, from twin skins to toe socks, road socks to off-road socks, and gym socks to compression socks, there really is a sock for every activity. Choose from different styles, different colors, and different lengths. Toe socks. Toe socks are traditionally worn by longer distance runners. They give your feet more freedom to move, and by allowing your toes to splay, can prevent blisters in the toe area. After shoes and sports bras, socks are the most important piece of your kit. This is a European site, in case you couldn't tell. But I found that interesting. So toe socks, I actually have a pair of toe socks. I've never worn them. I think I'm going to. I want to try this out. Now, I bought them under this logic of, it won't compress your feet. Your toes will be able to just kind of spread a little bit because they're all individually in their own little, sock. So I wanted to give it a try. Well, now I see reading this, they actually recommend toe socks for longer distance runners. Okay, hey, it's worth a try. It can't be any worse than running barefoot. I'll give you that. So next is avoiding blisters. Wearing a running sock that wicks moisture away may prevent a blister from ever developing. Equally flat toe seams will help to prevent blisters in the toe area too. Always wear clean socks for running to help prevent blisters. Twin skin socks provide even more protection against blisters with the dual layer of sock and lining, which prevents rub, but the compromise is reduced breathability. Now, honestly, I'd never heard of these twin skin sock. Curious, but I've never heard of it. Next one, protecting vulnerable areas. Like the groundhog, good running socks will have a shape. I don't know why they compare this to a groundhog. Like the groundhog, good running socks will have shaped cushioning in the Achilles area and shaped footbed cushioning to support those high impact areas. Extra padding in the toe, heel, and ball of the foot will provide good shock absorption as you land. Agreed. This is totally correct. My issue that I had at Top City, so I had on, these were official running socks. These were sold to me by a friend of the podcast, and so I'm gonna have to give him a hard time now. But I don't know if they were just too thick, and so it was squeezing my foot, like they were too compressing. Normally I like compression, but again, whatever it was, this was way too much. And then let's see, a good fit. Look for socks which have a Y-knit heel, which will give a better fit and a supportive arch grip. Okay. Breathability, good running socks will keep your feet warm in the winter and cool in the summer. This is achieved with mesh sections in the socks where cushioning is not required. So it says looking after your socks well will extend their life and protect your feet. Follow these sock rules for longer lasting socks. Never use bleach, which will break down the fabric. Always wear clean socks to run. Don't tumble dry running socks. Get rid of socks that have lost their shape and no longer fit well. And then socks should be replaced every 3 to 6 months as the fibers will unavoidably deteriorate due to the wear and washing. So there we go. Little information on socks. Who'd have thunk? But it really sucks when your socks don't fit right. I'm gonna have way too much fun with this pun now. And I'm sorry if you guys heard that noise. My husky dog really wanted to be a part of this podcast and was trying to talk to me. You goofy dog. So anyway, just a little information on socks there because I had an issue with it. I make the mistake so you don't have to. It's not something I'd ever given a whole lot of thought to, but now I'm gonna have to give a whole lot of thought to it to try and avoid injury and trying to avoid not running in just shoes and foot. It was no bueno. No bueno. So like I said, coming up next is the Lincoln Half Marathon. That is in Lincoln, Nebraska. And then we are right back here for running with the cows. So we're just 2 weeks away from running with the cows. And that's when we know that the heat and humidity will absolutely rise here in the state of Kansas because we all come near to death when we do running with the cows. After running with the cows, I actually have a week off, which will be the first one in a long time. And then we're already getting into late spring, almost summertime, where a lot of the distance races go down. We just go back to a lot of the 5Ks and more of the fun races, knowing full well that it's going to be 11 billion degrees outside. And then if you are getting ready for a fall marathon, like for me, the big one is going to be Berlin in September. The start of July is the start of marathon training. Yeah, the fall marathon schedule will be here before we know it, and the marathon training is going to begin soon, like really soon. Oh goodness. There's never a dull moment here in the running world, is there? Like this is nuts. It's everywhere. So that's where the podcast is going to be. I want to thank you all for your support. We've actually been doing great on the social media land, social media universe, territory, whatever you want to call it. A lot of people are playing along with all of our posts, which is wonderful. Every like, every click, every comment helps Facebook notice us a little more, and then they will take them noticing us and they'll put us out in front of more people. That's kind of how we grow and get more people in this podcast and playing along with what we do. So always participate in Metal Monday, always participate in Flashback Friday, Charity Wednesday, Race Shirt Thursday, still whatever the heck we do on Tuesday. We're not consistent about anything yet. And then, anything you can do, always listen to us on Spotify or iTunes or whatever. Watch us on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you like the podcast, help us grow, and that's how we do it. And I know I've been over this before, but reminders. Reminders are always good. And then we are on TikTok, but I suck at TikTok. I'm too old. Anyway, let me backtrack. I never showed you guys the medal. If you are watching the video, let's look at the Top City medal since we talked about Top City today. Here we go. Now, if you watched the episode with them, this is where you got to see the medal reveal. They revealed the medal right here on this podcast. But there we go. There it is right there. There's my copy of it. And that's the one that will hang behind me. It's going to hang right around there. Maybe here. I don't know. Somewhere. But that's where it's going to be here very shortly. So, again, thank you to everyone at Top City. Mark, you're the best. That race is wonderful. Next year, let's all get down there and run Top City yet again. I do believe that from the first year I ran it, which was last year, to this year, I think registration has gone up. I'm going to go out on a limb and say registration is up. So that's good. We want this race to do well. So if you are listening and not in the Kansas area, but you're needing Kansas to get knocked off your half marathon list, I would recommend to you the Top City Half Marathon in Topeka, Kansas. It'll be in April of next year. So we would love to see you there. Right? Right. All right. Well, I can't think of anything else to prattle on about, so let's just call this one good. What do you say? This has been another episode of the Back of the Pack podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Walker. It was my pleasure as always. Make sure that you do all the fun social media stuff. Comment, like, share, subscribe, rate, rank, give stars, tell friends, send smoke signals, carrier pigeons, whatever you got to do. Just get people to listen to this podcast because they should have as much fun as we have with this show, right? We'll go with that. All right, everybody. Have a great week of training. We'll see you next week.